On the evening of February 2nd, 2011, a man stands in the corner of a casino restroom. He's counting 3 large wads of cash. Online, he's only known under a pseudonym, Ocean Spray 25. He's a multi-millionaire, lives a life of luxury, and drives a Suzuki GSXR. In Las Vegas, he feels safe, untouchable. Suddenly, he hears a commotion on the other side of the restroom door. Without hesitation, he rushes for the nearest cubicle. He must hide, because without realising it, he's just made a mistake. A tiny mistake with serious consequences. If he's not careful, it will cost him everything. FBI investigators have been waiting for this moment for months. Authorities and multiple casinos across Vegas have worked tirelessly for this opportunity. Will the hunt for Vegas's biggest thief finally come to an end? It's the year 2000 and an Italian-American student is on a trip. Home is Colorado with his mother and her people. It's quiet, but right now he's visiting his father. And his father, his stepfather, his uncle, they've all done well. Nice suits, nice cars, nice houses. They all worked hard. They're respectable, self-made men who are always giving him a life lesson. And now it's time for him to grow up. But tonight, he's out in Vegas, where his dad lives. And that means casinos. And inside those, it's nice to dream that you've already made it. Just like the guy next to him on the craps table. He'll never know his name, but he's about to change his life forever. Now, craps is a casino dice game where players bet on the outcomes of a roll or a series of rolls of a pair of dice. Playing against the house, there are different ways to bet, from the total of your next roll to whether specific numbers will come up. But this guy's betting on one of the longest shots in the game, a hard 8. The odds that he'll roll 2 4s before he rolls a 7, the most common outcome of a 2 dice roll, or a soft 8 like a 6 and a 2, a 9 to 1. The kid watches, transfixed, as the man starts with a single $5 chip. He bets a hard 8, rolls, and wins. Now he has $50 and he should walk away, but no, he lets it ride. He bets the $50 on another hard 8 and wins again, and now he has $500. The crowd is growing. The craps tables are always where the party is, and right now this is the place to be. To the kid's amazement, the man bets a hard 8 again and wins. The crowd explodes. He goes again and wins, and it's mayhem. The man has become an instant hero. His $5 becoming $50,000. To hit a hard 8 once was improbable. To hit it 4 times in a row was nearly impossible. It's 1 in 1,679,616 to be exact. So surprise, surprise, the casino's hardly paying its dues, but the guy's $50,000 richer. So now he walks away. Why wouldn't he? And so does the young Italian American, a picture clearer than ever forming in his mind. One day, when he's earned his chance, just like all of his family role models, he too will play like this, like he doesn't care. His name is Tony Carleo. Fast forward to August 2009, and back in the small working city of Portobello, Colorado, Tony's dreams have not yet come true. In fact, his life isn't just going nowhere, it's heading down the toilet, fast. There's been some bad luck along the way. A car crash got him hooked on the painkiller OxyContin, and the financial crash of 2008 left him with a ton of debt. But mostly, it's just been bad choices and one dumb scheme after the next. A one-man disc jockey business called DJ Tony Mike, a limo hire company, Gold Key Limousines, with its very own motto, what goes on in the limo, stays in the limo, and now drug dealing, coke, ecstasy, his leftover OxyContin. The truth is, he knows he's a letdown, an idiot, and everything has failed. And so he files for bankruptcy, almost at rock bottom. Almost, but not completely. Because whilst his parents are divorced, they both still love him, and they encourage him to keep going. One last roll of the dice to grow up and get a proper job in medicine. So he sells whatever hasn't been seized, pockets his last $30,000 and jumps in his car. It's a 12-hour drive to the start of his new chapter, so plenty of time to think. He'll be living with his dad, with a $1,000 per month allowance, while he completes his studies at the University of Nevada. It's time to get serious. Destination? Las Vegas. On the board in his dad's spare room, he pins up some motivation. A photo of his cousin Augie, dead from an overdose, over which he writes the words, "Succeed for me." And for a couple of semesters, he does good. Studies hard, meets a nice girl, keeps his $30,000. The trouble with Vegas though is, well, Vegas In late November of 2010, there's a 2-week break from class. He's still taking OxyContin, and when he's not studying, he gets flat, lonely. And where's the cure for that? Right on his doorstep. 24/7, the casinos. In a matter of days, he loses half his bankroll. There are strippers and a lot of drugs. Soon, only endless lines of OxyContin and cocaine keep him upright. He's a mess. And his dad stops his allowance. And the way Tony sees it, that forces his hand. So now, here he is, with his last $12,000, inside one of the most luxurious casinos on the Strip, the Bellagio. The Bellagio may not have the history of Caesar's Palace or the nightlife of the MGM Grand, but when it comes to keeping the high rollers happy, it's hard to beat, hosting big name players and celebrities galore, like Phil Ivey and Doyle Brunson, Ben Affleck and Paris Hilton. It all means there's a lot of money in the house. Tony just needs some of it. And first stop is the poker table. The better players see him coming through, and he soon loses $6,000. At midnight, he switches to blackjack. Him versus the dealer means that, apart from that all-important edge that the casinos like to keep hold of, it's a 50-50 game. But it's a game he loses again and again and again. And an hour later, he has nothing. Tony sits with his head in his hands. He's lost everything. He needs coke, and that doesn't come cheap. And a new way to get back on track. Big money, fast. And he remembers that guy at the craps table 10 years earlier and thinks, if he could do it, I could do it. And at that moment, right there in front of him, inside the Bellagio, he sees how. It's a plan that cannot fail. Like a lot of gamblers down on their luck, Tony has often had this fantasy. The one where you're fresh out of chips, so you simply reach over, grab a free handful, and as simple as that, you're back in the game. Hell, he'd even joked about it. So why not just do it? He thinks hard. Could he really? What would he need to pull this off? The answer? Not much. It's beautifully, crazily simple. He doesn't have much left, but he does have a gun, just to make the transaction as smooth as possible. And he also has a motorbike, a black Suzuki GSX-R, with a top speed of 170 miles per hour, perfect for a speedy exit, because you don't want to be hanging around when you've just robbed $1 billion business propped up by the mob. And over the next couple of days, he decides if he can get in and out unrecognised, there's nothing that could go wrong. So is he really doing this? On the 9th of December 2010, it looks like he is. He dresses all in black, hops on his black bike and weaves through the Vegas night. He's heading out of town to the West Vegas suburbs, Summerlin. He's on his way to change his life. He doesn't go too fast because he doesn't want to attract attention. And besides, his heartbeat's supplying all the speed he needs. It's a roller coaster ride of adrenaline. Before he can change his mind, he reaches his destination, the Suncoast Casino, a laid-back, low-security locals joint, 10 kilometers from the hustle of the Strip. It's a place he knows well. He parks his bike outside the entrance, jumps off, helmet on, keys still in the ignition, pulls a gun out of his waistband, walks inside, counting his steps, just 45 like he'd rehearsed, and gets to the cashier. Once there, he tells him to reach into the drawer, grab stacks of cash, and put it into a bag. In a single minute, it's all over, and just 45 steps back out to the bike. There's no security, or at least they don't get involved. Most casinos will not go near an armed robber. Their reasoning? Weapons are a liability, we'll just call the police. So he heads into the night, $19,000 richer, and the police have no leads. For the first time in his life, he feels like a winner. Back in his dad's spare room, he spreads the money out. A $20,000 payday, just like that. He took a chance and boom. He should spend the money carefully and lay low, but he doesn't. He gets right back into planning because the truth is, for Tony, this is just a warm-up. And 5 days later, on the 14th of December 2010, he's at it again. This time though, he plans to hit the jackpot. And for this, he'll be heading back to where he spotted it, where the big money is, in the Bellagio. Taking 6% of all casino cash in town, it's making well over $2 million per day. So how much are they really going to care if just a little slice takes a little walk? It's 3:50 AM when Tony arrives. Once again, he parks his bike, keys in ignition, helmet still on. There's always room for manners, and for staying cool. So he gives the security guard a friendly wave, and she waves back. And then he heads inside at a brisk jog. Not though to the cashier. It's too far. It will take too long, and notes are bulky too. Instead, he heads 200 yards to the very same place where he'd hatched his plan, the high limits craps tables. There are a few high rollers, unaware of what's about to happen, and then right there, sitting on the table, just as he's fantasised, is a huge pile of chips. He pulls out his gun and shouts for people to get out. He starts shoveling handful after handful of chips into a backpack. He scoops wide and he scoops fast. It takes just 15 seconds, and then he runs 200 yards back through the casino waving his gun at the valet, but there's no sign of any have-a-go heroes. He gets back on his bike, down Flamingo Road, into the desert night. There are some flashing blue lights at first, a quick police chase, but then he's gone, and they'll never catch him, especially at those top speeds again, 170 miles an hour. Soon, he's home to count out his jackpot. It's incredible, more than he'd ever imagined, $1.5 million. And he knows for sure they can't identify him. What he doesn't know though, is that he's just made a crazy mistake.
It's something straight out of Hollywood. A thief is on the run with over $1 million in Las Vegas casino chips.
It's a Hollywood-sized heist, so soon it's all over the news, with the culprit being tagged the Bellagio Bandit. But who is this guy? He did the Suncoast too, a locals casino, so he must have local connections. A mother, a father, but who? There are still no leads. All the casino and the cops have to go on is what's been stolen, and that's where Tony's problems begin, with the chips themselves. Casinos like chips that can be used in their casinos only. Not only are they usually branded that way, they often contain scannable radio frequency identification, or RFID tags, so whilst they can't be tracked, they won't work anywhere else. Tony knows this though, and it's fine, because he's not planning on going anywhere else. He's already known as a player at the Bellagio. Now, he just heads back there and plays a little more often, poker mainly, with their chips, which he's stolen. Because how would they know? Something else the casino chips have in common though is the colour code, with different value chips coming in different colours. It can vary, but at the Bellagio it starts with $1 whites. The ones Tony was after though were $100 blacks, all the way up to the $1,000 yellows and $5,000 greys. And that's all fine too though. Getting rid of the smaller value chips is easy, and the more he plays, the more he spends. The easier it is to slip in those bigger ones too. Then he heads to the craps pit, table number 5, the actual scene of his very own robbery. He can't help it, and he discovers that he's all that anyone is talking about. You think that guy will get away with it? Someone asks. The guy's fucking crazy, of course he'll get caught. Are you kidding? He's a genius. I guarantee you he's long gone by now. It's all good for the ego. The Bellagio Bandit is famous. And Tony continues to lose, but hell, it's not his money, and at the end of each night, he's still walking up to the cashier and cashing out $20,000 or $30,000. Soon, he's laundered over $100,000, which he stashes in a safety deposit box. He's also got the casino's attention, and not in a bad way. All his spending has made him a valued customer, so they start with their comps. First, the steak dinners, then a suite. Soon, he's living in the casino he robbed at their expense, dressed in their Valor tracksuit, spending the money that he stole from them. He's slowly giving it all back though, because he's still losing. $105,000 during 18 gambling sessions in just over a month, including $72,000 on New Year's Eve. In fact, come January 2011, his deposit box is empty and he's running out of chips. There's not many left, less than 50. And they are the problem. The real problem. Because as well as scooping up the medium value chips he'd planned for, Tony also grabbed some cranberry coloured chips, each worth $25,000. The casino thinks that he could have as many as 48, which together would be worth a staggering $1.2 million. And right now, they're hidden in the homes of Tony's friends all across the city. So the Bellagio decides to set a trap, announcing that its $25,000 cranberries are to be discontinued soon. They call for all gamblers holding the chips to redeem them by April 22nd. It's a direct invite to the Bellagio Bandit. Use those $25,000 chips if you dare, and we'll see what happens. And if you miss that deadline, they'll simply become worthless plastic. Still though, no leads. A Salvation Army bell ringer called Robert Cornell tries to cash in a single $25,000 chip that someone had dropped in his bucket, but can't or won't say who. But then the Vegas cops in charge of the case, Detective Sam Smith and Jason Nelson, catch a break. They get a visit from a dealer at the Bellagio, an excitable guy from New Jersey who they nickname Leo after Joe Pesci's character in Lethal Weapon, the kind of chirpy guy who loves to be involved. Leo says that days before the robbery, on the 11th of December 2010, a player at his table, Broke, had joked, "Man, I'd like to just run over to that table and grab a bunch of those cranberries." And then, a few days later, that same guy was back and magically in the money. His name? Tony Carleo. The detectives check him out. Declared bankrupt? Tick. Owns a Suzuki GSXR? Tick. A drug problem that might make you do crazy stuff, with prescriptions for over 120 80mg OxyContin pills a month. That's also a great big tick. And while in the 4 years leading up to the robbery, Carleo had lost a total of $2,900 at the casino, since the robbery he's lost $105,000. He has to be the Bellagio bandit. But when Detective Nelson finds out who his father is, he says, "Damn, if that's the case, I better be right. They need to get rock solid proof." But how? Tony, meanwhile, is hatching a plan. He gets onto the 2+2 poker forum. Username, OceanSpray25. Location, Granada. He starts making connections. And when a user posts a question, how many potentially worthless cranberries would you accept for a legit 5k chip? He sees his chance. He gets in touch, sends him a picture to prove that he has them, and asks the forum member, named Matthew Brooks, to make him an offer. Brooks passes, but days later, Tony's approached in the Venetian casino by a man representing a Jersey mobster named Dominic, who is willing to buy. He's Italian American and full of it, just like him, and they immediately hit it off. Over the next few days, they meet repeatedly to eat, drink, talk and negotiate. And on January 30th, Dominic slides a wine list across the restaurant table to Tony, telling him, "There's some nice selections in there." Inside, he finds $10,000 in cash. He pockets the money, passes a $25,000 chip back to Dominic and heads up to his suite, delighted. Finally, Tony is in business. He'll sell off all the chips at $10,000 apiece and then get out of the game. Tony and Dominic stay in contact, and on February 2nd, they meet again. This time, it's back at the Bellagio, downstairs in the bathrooms, but on this occasion, Tony hands him 3 cranberries, together worth another $75,000. He jokes that if his dad hadn't stopped his allowance, he wouldn't have needed to do this. Now he can make it up with his father, and all will be good. Dominic bursts into laughter and heads off, but as he leaves, Tony notices something. The look that Dominic gives him is a little bit strange. Seconds later, 6 police storm through the door and Tony is arrested. The poker forum user Matthew Brooks had alerted the Las Vegas police, and Dominic is actually an officer named Mike Gennaro. And now, Mike Gennaro is wondering who's going to tell his dad, because of all people, Tony's father is a well-known Las Vegas judge, a respected pillar of the local, law-abiding community named George Assad. He releases a statement. "I can say that as a prosecutor and a judge, I've always felt people who break the law need to be held accountable." And he is. 23 cranberry chips worth $575,000 are located at the homes of a girlfriend and associate of Tony's, and he's eventually sentenced to 9 years in Nevada's Lovelock Correctional Center, the same prison that holds O.J. Simpson. His parents are heartbroken, and he apologizes. The police reports show that the Bellagio dealer, Leo, had warned Tony not to go ahead with his plan. "Dude, you watch Ocean's 11 too much. This is real life, and that doesn't happen." But Tony Carleo made it happen, and he might have got away with it if it wasn't for one $25,000 mistake, those cranberry chips, which he should have left on the table, or at least never tried to sell.